I remember the exact moment the lie began to unravel, not with a confession or a heated argument, but with the low click of a car door unlocking in the garage. It was a Sunday afternoon, one of those rare ones where the kids were at their grandparents' for the weekend, and I had the house to myself. Vanessa was out running errands, or so she said. I had just finished organizing the garage, dusty bins, old sports gear, some unopened wedding gifts we still hadn't returned, and I was moving toward the driveway when I spotted her car pulling in. She wasn't expecting me to be outside. Her smile was quick, almost too quick, and her hands fumbled with her purse as she stepped out. "Hey, babe," she said, voice bright. "Didn't expect you home this early. Thought I'd surprise you," I said. I didn't mean it in any sinister way. At least, not yet. She popped the trunk, pulling out 2 brown paper bags. I offered to help, but she waved me off. "Just groceries," she said. "Nothing heavy." I nodded and made my way to the passenger side, intending to grab the dry cleaning she'd promised to pick up. That's when I saw it. Nestled in the side door compartment, barely hidden beneath a crushed parking ticket, was a men's watch. Not just any watch. This was a luxury piece. Heavy, thick-banded, sleek black face with silver lining, the kind of thing you'd find in a high-end boutique downtown, locked behind glass and guarded with a price tag that made your stomach turn. It wasn't mine. That's what hit me first. The immediate recognition that this thing didn't belong in my world. I didn't own a watch like this. Never had. My heartbeat slowed, heavy like molasses, each thud pushing doubt deeper into my stomach. I reached for it, fingers trembling before they even made contact. It felt cold, even in the warm cabin of the car. That weight, it wasn't just metal. It was the kind of weight that screamed significance. Turning it over, I spotted the engraving. To R.M. for all the hours we lost and found. See, it was so intimate, so precise. A name reduced to initials, but the sentiment clear. This was a lover's gift. I stood frozen, the sound of Vanessa's keys jangling somewhere behind me. She was inside now. I slipped the watch into my pocket and shut the door carefully, like it was a secret I was sealing away. Inside, the kitchen was already filled with the sound of grocery bags rustling and the humming of the refrigerator door being propped open. "Hey," I said, my voice a little too smooth, too even. "You get the dry cleaning?" She looked up from the fridge. "Oh shoot, totally forgot. Sorry, I'll get it tomorrow." "No worries," I replied, walking past her to pour a glass of water. My hand, the one that had held the watch, trembled slightly against the glass. It was such a small thing, really. One object out of place. But it didn't feel small. It felt like a fracture. Like someone had taken a tiny hammer to the glass walls of our marriage and given it the first tap. That night, she was affectionate. Almost too much. She curled into me like it was the beginning again, like we were 2 newlyweds escaping the noise of the world. Her hands on my chest, her voice low in the dark. And all I could think about was that watch. The engraving. The initials. R.M. I didn't say anything right away. Not even the next morning, when I watched her get dressed for work, choosing a blouse I'd never seen before and slipping on a necklace that didn't match her earrings. She kissed me on the forehead and smiled like nothing had shifted. But something had. I spent that Monday in a haze. I went to work, sure. Took the usual meetings, answered emails, made calls. But in my mind, I was still holding that watch, turning it over and over, reading the inscription 100 times. That night, while she was in the shower, I retrieved the watch from my sock drawer, where I had hidden it like some illicit treasure, and examined it again under the light of my desk lamp. The brand was engraved beneath the clasp. I looked it up online. $8,400 retail. I sat back in my chair, staring at the numbers on the screen. I knew Vanessa's spending habits. Every dollar had always been accounted for in our joint budget. She wasn't reckless. But this was either stolen, gifted, or part of something much deeper. Tuesday morning came, and I played dumb. I made her coffee like I always did. French roast, a splash of cream, 2 sugars. I watched her sip it with a smile and kiss our daughter on the cheek before heading out the door. By Wednesday, the suspense became unbearable. That evening, while she was cooking dinner, I walked casually into the kitchen and said, "By the way, found something in your car." Her head turned quickly, eyes wide but too quickly masked with casual surprise. "Oh, a watch," I said, watching her closely. "Luxury. Expensive. Thought it might be a gift." I swear I saw her blink. Just once, slightly too long. Oh yes, she said. It's for you. I was going to give it to you on your birthday. You found it early, huh? She smiled, but there was tension in her shoulders, a stiffness in the way she held the spatula. For me? I asked gently, even though it's got someone else's name engraved on it. She went still. For a moment, the silence in the room swallowed everything. The sizzle of the pan, the buzz of the fridge, even the faint laughter of our kids in the next room. Then she turned, a tight laugh escaping her lips. Oh, she said, waving a hand. That's just a sample. From the jeweler. They show examples sometimes. I didn't even notice the engraving. A sample for an $8,400 watch with a personalized inscription. I nodded slowly, pretending to believe her, pretending everything was fine, pretending that the foundation beneath my feet hadn't started to crack open like dried clay in the heat. Later that night, I went back out to the garage and sat in the dark, the watch in my palm, the engraving staring back at me. The initials burned into my mind. RM. Who was RM? The man she bought the watch for? Or the man who gave it to her? And if it wasn't mine, what the hell was it doing in her car? The night didn't end with a confrontation. It ended with silence. Not an awkward one. Vanessa was too clever for that. No, she peppered the evening with mundane details about her day, school updates from the kids, even a funny anecdote from her office. All of it delivered with just enough charm to distract someone who wasn't looking for cracks. But I was looking. I was watching her eyes, her posture, the way she stirred her tea too long without sipping it. I barely said a word during dinner. The next day, I started digging. I told Vanessa I had a meeting in the city. I didn't. I dropped the kids off at school, kissed them goodbye, and turned the car not toward downtown, but toward the upscale shopping district where the watch was likely purchased. The engraving was my only lead. To R.M. for all the hours we lost and found. See. Lost and found. It didn't sound like the start of something. It sounded like a reconciliation. The jeweler's shop sat on the corner of Lenox and 14th, its glass windows glinting with the shimmer of display lighting. Everything about the place screamed exclusivity. No price tags, no sales signs, just elegance. I walked in and was greeted by a man in a fitted navy suit, his hair slicked back in practiced symmetry. Good morning, sir. Looking for anything in particular? I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo I'd taken of the watch. I found this, I said carefully, and I'm trying to find out where it was purchased. Looks like something you'd carry. He studied the image with trained eyes. Ah, yes. That's from our Meridian collection. Very distinctive engraving style. Do you have the physical watch with you? I hesitated, then retrieved it from my coat pocket. His eyes lit up. Yes, definitely ours. I waited. He didn't say anything more. Would you be able to tell me who bought it? I asked. I'm afraid I can't share client information, he said quickly, stepping back. Privacy policy. Of course. I offered him a practiced, sheepish smile. Look, I know how this sounds. I think someone might be trying to pass this off as a gift to me. I'm not looking for trouble. Just clarity. His gaze lingered on me, calculating. I can't give you names, he said finally, but I can confirm if it was bought here and when. Would that help? It would. He disappeared into the back with the watch. I stood by the window, pretending to admire a row of rose gold chronographs. When he returned, his tone had shifted. This was purchased 6 weeks ago. Paid in full. Cash. He didn't say it, but I could hear it. Someone wanted no trace. Did a woman buy it? I asked, holding my breath. He shrugged. Couldn't say. But you remember. A pause. Then, she wasn't alone. That's all he would give me. When I walked out of the store, the cold morning air hit me like a slap. My breath fogged the windshield as I sat in the car, the watch heavy in my pocket. 6 weeks ago, around the same time Vanessa had taken that girls' weekend in Napa with her friend Sherry. I texted Sherry from a burner number that I'd activated earlier that morning, an old engineering phone I'd kept as a backup. Hey, is Vanessa around? Want to talk about the Napa trip? Need a favor? Jay? I signed it with Jay because Sherry used to date a guy named Jordan. I was hoping she'd bite, thinking he was texting from a new number. She responded in under a minute. Wrong number. And Vanessa wasn't in Napa. She went to LA, said it was a work thing. Who is this? My throat went dry. I stared at the text, letting its meaning settle in. Vanessa had never mentioned Los Angeles. Never said a word about work. She had posted photos, 2 wine glasses, a vineyard, a cheese platter, but none with people. Of course she did, because no one else was with her. I thanked Sherry, then deleted the message thread. It was already more than enough. That night, I didn't sleep. Vanessa curled up beside me, resting her head against my chest like it belonged there. Her breathing slowed into a rhythm I once found soothing. Now it felt invasive. I replayed her words over and over. It's a sample. Just a sample. Sure. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I waited until Vanessa left, then opened her closet and began searching. Carefully, methodically. I wasn't looking for clothes. I was looking for the void. That space where something used to be. And I found it. A small jewelry box, empty, buried beneath scarves. Then, near the back of the closet, tucked behind winter coats, a tiny velvet bag. Inside it, a spare watch band. Identical style. Different size. Maybe meant for me. Maybe not. I opened her laptop next. Nothing. Checked her emails. Clean. I paused, then opened the trash bin. One email, still lingering in the digital wastebasket. Hotel Ladera, reservation confirmation. It was dated 3 days before the Napa trip. The check-in date matched exactly. Los Angeles. I clicked on the details. 2 adults. King suite. She hadn't even tried to delete the confirmation entirely. I printed the email, folded it neatly, and placed it inside the velvet watch bag. Then I returned everything exactly as I found it. That evening, I invited her to dinner. She looked surprised. Midweek. Why not? I smiled. Kids are still at your parents'. Thought we'd make the most of it. We went to the little Italian place downtown, the one with candlelit tables and hand-drawn menus. She laughed over wine, told stories, touched my hand, looked at me like nothing was wrong. And I played along. I smiled. I asked questions. I paid the check. Back home, I poured her another glass, then excused myself and went to the garage. I sat in the driver's seat of her car, closed the door, turned on the overhead light, and there it was, tucked under the passenger seat. A small, printed photo, likely dropped by mistake. A man, late 30s, maybe early 40s. Brown hair, wearing my watch. Or rather, one just like it. And in the bottom right corner of the photo, scrawled in delicate handwriting, barely legible under the smudge of a fingerprint. For all the hours we lost and found. See, my wife. Her name was Caroline before she changed it to Vanessa, back when we got married. Said it was too common, too close to her ex's taste. See, I stared at the handwriting, at the edges of truth peeling back one layer at a time. I pressed the photo flat against the dashboard, letting my hands fall to my lap. My heart pounded, but I felt no rage. Not yet. Just clarity. This wasn't over. Not even close. It was strange how quickly my mind shifted from confusion to purpose. Like flicking a switch. I'd spent days circling this wound, unsure where it began or how deep it ran. But now, with that photograph in my hand, his photo, something settled in me. A steel calm. The man was real. Not just initials, not just an engraving. He had a face now. A smirk caught mid-laugh. He was holding a glass of wine. Somewhere warm, likely a hotel restaurant. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. Comfortable. Familiar. And on his wrist, the watch. Her gift. Vanessa's gift. Or Caroline's, rather. Funny, how names come back when the lies start unraveling. Caroline. See, she only started going by Vanessa after we got engaged. Said it sounded more professional. More elegant. I never thought to question it. Now it felt like she'd been preparing for reinvention long before we even said our vows. I kept the photo. Not in my pocket this time, but in a folder, alongside the hotel reservation email, the printout from the jeweler's webpage, and a copy of our shared calendar showing Napa weekend. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I was preparing. In engineering, clarity isn't just about solving a problem. It's about understanding why the problem exists. That weekend, while Vanessa took the kids to her sister's for a birthday party, I stayed behind. Claimed I had to work. She barely looked up from her phone when I declined to join them. The moment the car pulled away, I began. I printed a second copy of the photo and brought it to the office. Michelle, my assistant, spotted me walking in with it. "Weekend work again?" she asked gently. "Just something I need eyes on," I replied. I laid the photo on my desk, opened an incognito browser, and started searching. Reverse image tools. Face recognition apps. Nothing definitive. But then I tried social media. And I found him. Robert Maddox. R. Private account, but the profile photo was a match. Same eyes, same smirk. His bio read, creative director, storyteller, sometimes photographer, followed by a link to his portfolio. A few clicks, and there he was, posed in front of a studio in Los Angeles. Another image showed him hiking near Big Sur. Another, dated 6 weeks ago, showed the interior of Hotel Ladera. Same table, same wine glasses, same watch. I didn't know how far this went, but I knew one thing. He wasn't some brief distraction. This was an affair, not a fling. There were weekends, gifts, photos, intimacy beyond the physical. She'd carved out a life with him, a secret one that existed parallel to ours. And I intended to bring that life crashing down. I emailed myself the links and downloaded the photos. Then, I did something I didn't think I'd ever do. I called Michelle into my office. She sat across from me, curious, calm. "I need your help," I said. She looked at the photo, the documents, the email printouts. She didn't ask if it was real. She just asked, "What do you want to do?" "I want to end this," I said. "But I want to do it right." Michelle nodded slowly. "And by right, you mean?" "Not screaming. Not scandal. I want her to feel it in layers. Quietly. Publicly. Irrevocably." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stood, walked to the door, and locked it. "Okay," she said, turning back. "Let's talk strategy." The first step was information. I needed to know how long this had been going on, what she had shared, what she had taken. Michelle helped me track Vanessa's travel records, work receipts, airline bookings, even in used vacation hours. Every piece told a story. The affair had likely started nearly a year ago. What began with business trips turned into overnight stays, extended meetings, late calls, hotel bookings in cities she had no business traveling to. At least 3 trips to LA, 2 to Seattle, 1, oddly, to Chicago, where Maddox had hosted a design expo, according to his portfolio. Michelle tapped into our expense software, pulled up a shared credit card we rarely used. A charge for Rosario's Jewelers appeared 2 months ago. "Same jeweler as the watch?" she asked. "Same." "And she paid in cash?" "She must have pulled from her personal savings, which she has access to because of your trust." I nodded. Michelle took a breath. "You're going to want to lawyer up." "I already have someone in mind," I said. "Lorraine?" she guessed. "Yes." Michelle smirked. "Good. She doesn't play games." Sunday evening, Vanessa returned with the kids. She seemed relaxed, carefree. Our daughter clutched a balloon. Our son held a cupcake box tilted at an angle that guaranteed frosting damage. Vanessa leaned in to kiss me, and I let her. For now. Later, as she tucked the kids in, I sat in the kitchen, the watch sitting quietly on the table. She walked in, freezing when she saw it. "You found it again," she said, voice light but brittle. I didn't look up. "You never moved it." "I just put it back where I found it." She tilted her head. "I told you it was a sample." "You did," I said. Then, I stood and walked past her. No anger. No questions. Just enough weight to make her wonder. She didn't sleep well that night. I could tell by the way she kept turning, adjusting her pillow, checking her phone. The cracks were forming. The next morning, I woke before dawn. Showered. Dressed. Packed a small duffel bag. Vanessa stirred as I zipped it closed. "You okay?" she asked groggily. "Meeting in Portland," I said. "Last-minute thing. You didn't say anything about it." I shrugged. "Didn't think you'd notice." Her eyes opened fully at that. "Of course I'd notice," she said. I didn't respond. I just kissed her forehead and walked out the door. Downstairs, I slid the folder into my bag. The watch. The photo. The receipts. The evidence. And something else. An invitation. I had Michelle draft it. One of those upscale, embossed things people use for gallery openings. Elegant. Subtle. The kind of invitation you don't throw away. Vanessa would find it when she checked the mail. She'd open it and see the words printed in clean, serif font. Lost and Found. An exhibition of time, truth, and consequence. Private showing, one night only. Curated by G. Mercer. Location, the Hartley Building, 7 p.m., Friday. She wouldn't know what it meant. Not yet. But she would. Because on Friday night, she'd walk into that room and find every piece of her lie displayed like art, laid out for guests, friends, colleagues. Her world. Framed in glass. Labeled. Dated. The photographs. The receipts. The messages. The watch. All of it. Her curated betrayal, exposed. This wasn't revenge. This was revelation. The Hartley building stood like a relic, an old industrial loft refitted into an event space. All exposed brick and vaulted ceilings, soaked in dim golden light that made everything feel more cinematic than real. I'd booked it through a contact Michelle had at the architecture firm next door. No names, no questions, just a date and a check. It was perfect. The space came with built-in hanging rails and vintage glass display cases, usually used for modern art exhibits or book launches. But this time, it would display something else entirely. I arrived early, before the sun dipped below the skyline. I stood in the center of the room, watching as the pieces of our life, her secrets, my reality, were arranged by a small, discreet team Michelle had assembled. She had thought of everything. Framed photos of Robert Maddox, hung with soft, museum-grade lighting. Scans of hotel receipts, matched with calendar entries from our shared app. The reservation at Ladera, a time-stamped copy of a message she'd once sent him. You made me feel like I existed again. It sat beneath a glass dome like a rare artifact. At the far end of the room, I'd placed the centerpiece. A rotating pedestal, lit from beneath. On it sat the watch. Clean, polished, timeless. Its engraving visible beneath the curved display. To R.M. for all the hours we lost and found. C. Above the pedestal, a placard. Artifact 01. Time unraveled. Each section of the exhibit had a title. Weekend Escape. Fictional Napa. The Man in the Photo. Second Phone. First Love. Velvet and Lies. There was no blood. No fury. Just facts. Pain. Neatly curated. The guest list had been assembled with care. Colleagues, mutual friends, and, most importantly, her. I'd sent the invitation to our home. Hand-addressed, sealed in a heavy envelope. She'd opened it on Thursday evening, in the kitchen, while the kids were at soccer practice. She hadn't said a word. Just turned the invitation over in her hands like she didn't understand the language. I watched her face, waited for a flicker of recognition. It came slowly. A tightening around the mouth. A second glance at the return name, G. Mercer. Her name for me in the early days, before children, before routine. She used to say my full name sounded like an author or a villain. I suppose I became both. Friday came fast. Too fast. And when the clock ticked toward 6:58, I stepped into the back room and watched through a one-way mirror. The first to arrive were friends, Jason from the firm, his wife Angela. Michelle met them with champagne and a polite smile, explaining that the artist would be joining shortly. Then came Thomas and Lena, who used to host our wine nights, the ones Vanessa loved so much. They walked slowly through the exhibit, pausing at each frame. I watched as their faces shifted from confusion to realization. Then came her, Vanessa. She wore black, elegant, expensive, hair done in that slightly messy, perfectly crafted way she always did for formal events. She arrived alone. I had half expected her to bring him, the man behind the initials, but no. She came by herself. Her heels echoed through the room like a countdown. I saw her pause as she entered, her eyes scanning the space, taking in the lighting, the crowd, the tension that was just beginning to mount. And then she saw the first frame. I could almost hear her breath catch from behind the glass. She moved slowly at first, like her brain was buying her time, buffering the horror of what she was seeing. The photos, the texts, the hotel receipts. Each one arranged with clinical precision, surrounded by white space, elevated like artifacts of a fallen empire. I stepped out of the back room at 7:13 p.m. People turned, subtly, some not so subtly. Whispers stirred. Vanessa turned last, as if feeling me before seeing me. She blinked. Gabriel, she said, her voice low, uncertain. Welcome to the show, I said calmly. She opened her mouth, then closed it. What is this? I motioned to the space around us. It's everything I couldn't say. Everything you didn't think I'd notice. You invited people here, she said, her voice tightening. I didn't name names, I replied. Not once. No slander. No accusations. Just truth. Raw and unfiltered. Her eyes darted around, finding familiar faces. People we knew. People who once asked about our anniversary trips, who'd called her stylish, brilliant, lucky. You had no right, she hissed, stepping closer. I had every right, I said, voice steady. You lied to me for over a year. Lied to our children. lived a double life behind initials and cities I never visited. I gave you space to explain. You gave me a story about a sample watch. That wasn't how it happened. No, I interrupted. It was exactly how it happened. The only difference is, now everyone else knows it too. I turned away from her, letting the words linger. The room wasn't loud, but it wasn't quiet either. Conversations had begun, murmured reactions. Her name wasn't spoken, but her reflection was everywhere, in every glance, every furrowed brow, every stunned silence as another friend realized what they were really looking at. The final touch was at the exit. A simple guest book. Above it, a message. What is your truth worth? Some guests signed their names. Others left notes. I didn't read them yet. I didn't need to. As the crowd began to thin, Vanessa remained rooted near the pedestal, eyes fixed on the watch. She reached toward it, but didn't touch the glass. Did you ever really love me? She asked quietly, not looking at me. Every version of you, I said. Even the one that didn't exist. Silence. Then she turned and walked out the door. No goodbye, no apology, no justification. I stood alone in the gallery long after the last guest had left, watching the lights dim on each exhibit. Michelle reappeared by my side, holding 2 glasses. Champagne, she offered. Or something stronger. I took the stronger. She didn't speak at first, just stood beside me in the quiet. You pulled it off, she finally said. Elegant, brutal, controlled. It had to be, I replied. What now? I sipped my drink. Now, I said, we see who she really is when there's nothing left to perform for. Michelle nodded. And if she tries to spin it? She can't, I said. Every piece of this, photographic, financial, digital, was pulled from her own trail. It's irrefutable. Outside, rain had started. Soft, insistent. I felt the weight of months lift from my shoulders. Not joy, not relief, just release. Like I had finally put down something I'd been carrying far too long. But then, just as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You don't know everything. R.M. I stared at it. No reply. No emotion. But in the quiet of the now empty gallery, a new thought took root. This wasn't over. Not yet. The message from R.M. sat in my phone like a live wire. You don't know everything. 3 days had passed since the exhibit. The story had spread, quietly, virally, not in tabloids or group chats, but in the eyes of people who now avoided Vanessa at school drop-off, in the tone of friends who said less but stared longer. The fallout was civil, cordial. A vacuum sealed around her, and the silence screamed louder than gossip ever could. But the message, it dug deeper than public shame. Because he was right. I didn't know everything, and that bothered me more than I expected. It was Wednesday evening when I finally responded. Then tell me what I missed. No response that night. But by Thursday morning, a message came through with a location pin. A coffee shop in a quiet corner of Culver City. Attached was a time, Friday, 1 p.m. No name. No threats. No emojis. I booked a flight. Michelle didn't ask why. She just nodded. You going for answers or closure? Does it matter? Sometimes. One can ruin the other. The cafe was small, the kind of place with handwritten chalk menus and wood-paneled walls that tried hard not to look like they were trying hard. I got there early. Ordered nothing. Waited. At exactly 1:03, Robert Maddox walked in. He was taller than I expected. Slender. His hair grayer at the temples now, styled like he didn't want it to be. He wore a navy sweater over a crisp white shirt, and he moved like someone who'd lived in expensive places. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just walked over, sat down across from me, and said, You didn't have to nuke her life. She nuked mine, I replied. She was trying to leave. She just never got the timing right. I studied him. His face. His hands. His wrist. No watch. Funny thing to say from the man who wore my gift. I said, That wasn't your gift. She bought it for me. I leaned back, arms crossed. Why now? Why reach out? He looked out the window. She didn't tell you the whole story, he said. She lied. I know that much. No, he said, voice tightening. She lied to me too. He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a photo. Not the one from the car, but a different one. Vanessa, asleep, her face soft, peaceful, taken from the passenger seat of a moving car. She said she was divorcing you, that she was staying for the kids until the timing was right, that the watch was part of her way of telling me she was serious. I looked at the photo, then back at him. You believed her? I did, he said, until I saw the exhibit. Silence fell between us. He reached into his coat and pulled out something I hadn't expected. The second phone. Vanessa's hidden one. I told her to get rid of it. She said she did. I found it in my bag after the hotel. I reached for it, but he pulled it back. I'm not here to help you punish her. I'm here because I think you deserve the truth, no matter how much it hurts. He opened the phone, scrolled, then handed it over. I read. Not the flirty texts. Not the hotel bookings. Not the I miss yous. But the ones that followed. From 2 weeks ago. Vanessa, I can't do this anymore. He's too good. He gave me everything. And I broke it. Maddox, he's watching you. He'll never forgive you. Vanessa, I don't expect him to. I just want to stop lying. I owe him that. I scrolled further. An unsent draft, dated the morning of the exhibit. Gabriel, I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. Even while I was making the worst mistake of my life. I stared at it for a long time. She never sent it? I asked. No. She read your invitation and panicked. I handed him the phone. She still lied. She did, he nodded. And so did I. I knew she was married. She said it was broken, that it was ending. I should have known better. We sat there, surrounded by the quiet chatter of lives less complicated. Then he said something I didn't expect. She left me. I blinked. After the show? He nodded. Packed her things. Disappeared. I haven't heard from her since. I didn't respond. I just stood. Are we done? I asked. I think so, he said, standing too. Just, for what it's worth, I think she meant to choose you. She just never knew how to stop disappointing people. I walked out without another word. Back home, the house felt quieter than before. Not empty, just quieter. Like the ghosts of our marriage had finally stopped pacing the halls. Vanessa's things were still there, mostly. The essentials gone. Passport, a few clothes, a framed photo of her and the kids. I sat at the dining table and opened the velvet bag. Took out the watch. This time, I noticed something I hadn't before. Not the engraving. Not the weight. But a tiny smudge on the inside of the clasp. Faint. Faded. A fingerprint, maybe. Or a tear. I didn't clean it. Didn't hide it. I placed it back in its box. Tucked it away in the attic. Not as a reminder, but as a relic. A symbol of the hours we lost and never truly found. That weekend, Michelle invited me to lunch. We didn't talk about Vanessa, or the exhibit, or Maddox. We talked about life, work, books, kids. It felt like breathing again after weeks underwater. At one point, she leaned over and asked, "Do you still wear a watch?" I looked at my bare wrist. "No," I said. "I don't need to measure time right now. I just need to feel it." She smiled. "I think that's a good start." And it was. Not revenge. Not resolution. But something better. A beginning.